I'm one with the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force is with me. It's Rogue One Day at Sci-Fi Weekly. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but mainly Rogue One.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Sci-Fi Weekly.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sci-Fi Weekly, the show where we break down everything from the world of science fiction. I'm your host, Zach Wilson, and I have assembled my own team of rebels to attack the base of reviewing this movie. I don't know, I had something.
You tried it.
Either way, let me introduce them all. Back as always, Jesse Klein.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm super excited to talk about this movie. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at JessKlein1. That's JessKlein, the number one.
I'm just going to point at all of you with this blaster that I brought in.
A little uncomfortable,
as I go. Joelle Monique of Black Girl Nerds
Hey guys,
is here.
I'm Joelle Monique, as he says, of blackgirlnerds.com. You can find me there every week and everywhere on the internet at Joelle Monique. I make it easy.
And an old friend of mine, Dan Peralt of Fandango, is here to join us in studio as well.
I'm here. Find me at Dan J. Peralt, and I just want to promote my favorite Star Wars shirt. That's the only thing I want to plug right now.
The audience really seems to like this shirt. They're really excited about it.
They applauded before I began plugging.
Yeah. It's a dope shirt, man.
Thanks, man. If we could just talk about that for now.
It would be Scar Body, not Scarface.
All right.
Hi, everyone.
All right.
He didn't even prepare that. That was just off the dome.
Everybody calm down. You know, like, I want to get to Rogue One. We've got some sci-fi and real life to get to, some Star Trek casting news, but there's a whole lot of other news we gotta get through, and frankly, Lightspeed is too slow.
It is.
So we gotta go right to ludicrous speed.
Ludicrous speed!
Go! Sigourney Weaver has cast doubt on whether Avatar 2 is going to meet its December 2018 release date, telling the Hollywood Reporter that they haven't even started shooting the movie yet. Though no news is official, look for the CGI-heavy feature to move to its new release date in Unobtainiember.
Maybe they just don't shoot it at all, and they just premiere it and see if anyone notices. Rogue One apparently has no political statements, according to Bob Iger. I almost read Bob Seger, which would have been amazing if he had opinions. I believe the quote was, "Come on, guys. It's just about a team of people, maybe terrorists, fighting against an evil tyrannical figure who has promised that he is doing everything for everyone's best interest and taking all of their money and funding it into whatever he needs it to be." So definitely zero political allegations or anything. There's no allegory there. It's just whatever. It's an evil empire. Thanks, DJ.
Ruben Fleischer of Zombieland is on board to direct the big screen adaptation of Jekyll. The film's going to star Captain America himself, Chris Evans. And, you know, he would know something about serums getting injected into a person and stuff goes wrong.
Yeah, he is a drug addict.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Megan Fox is slated to play Poison Ivy in Gotham City Sirens, which, you know, like, when you think about Megan Fox, you think about her voice acting. Like, that's what people are thinking about. Like, Megan Fox has a great voice. That's all they say. Yeah.
This is not an animated movie. This is the live-action one.
What the hell are you talking about, Zach Wilson? Are you lying to me?
No, it's gonna be directed by David Ayers. You know, the guy from the critically acclaimed Suicide Squad.
What's going on at DC right now?
God only knows.
Have they lost their goddamn minds?
They're still making money.
Okay.
Ask DC Movie News. They have the scoop. All right. Lionsgate has pulled some changes on us, announcing new titles for both Pacific Rim and Godzilla. The sequels to both those movies. Pacific Rim 2 is no longer Maelstrom, or Maelstrom. I don't know how to pronounce that word. But now it's easy. Pacific Rim Uprising. That's a word I know.
Wow.
Godzilla 2 is now Godzilla King of the Monsters. Ooh. And I wanted to make a joke here, like something about like the Neo Geo game that I loved as a kid.
Sure.
But to be honest, I really want to see that game in real life. Like,
Yeah,
on the big
sure, why
screen. I
not?
would watch that.
The Kingkiller Chronicles, like In the Name of the Wind, and Wise Man's Fear, I believe is the second one, is now has a showrunner. Sorry, I'm tripping over it. I'm really excited. I forgot that they were making this show. Now has a showrunner in Librarians creator John Rogers. I mean, that makes sense. It's a book adaptation, so Librarians.
Yeah.
I understand what they're going for. Libraries and books. Together.
All right, let's.
I'm gonna keep saying this until people laugh.
Pull the
God damn
emergency
it.
brake on this joke and cut ludicrous speed. Because let's slow it down real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I want to just. We're gonna just get one story off for discussion because I wanted to get everybody's thoughts. There was a bunch of Star Trek Discovery casting announced. They announced they added 3 Klingons to the cast in Chris Obi, Shazeo Latif, and Mary Chifo? I don't know. But the big news
Could be a hard typo.
there's two stories here because it was announced that Anthony Rapp's character is going to be the first openly gay character in Star Trek. George Takei, who had the long conversation about the Sulu decision for Beyond, came out. He's very excited about it that they're adding a new character who's gay. And it's a historic moment for the show, which has always been heralded as the diversity show.
Yeah, sure.
And it's Anthony Rapp, so it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah. But the big one, they finally cast the lead of the show.
Yeah.
It's going to be Sonequa Martin Green from The Walking Dead. She plays. Oh, you can see a picture of her on screen now.
Oh yeah.
She's amazing.
She plays Sasha.
That phaser is not set to stun.
She's been Brian Fuller, the former executive producer, because he stepped down, has described her as a sensitive hero and a lieutenant commander with caveats. So
Caveats.
Those are the best kind.
You put a little caveats on a cracker, and you got some sparkling wine, you've got a good night.
but this is exciting. This is exciting. This is good casting.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes.
Like I'm not
Yeah,
super
she's
familiar
fantastic.
with her, but like what I've seen like has been good.
She was great in Walking Dead.
She's a very wide emotional range. Like they can do a lot with her.
Yeah.
And she's just fun to watch.
And the
I'm
first
excited.
main character on a Star Trek series who is not the captain. So that's going to add a very interesting
that's
dynamic
cool.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the lieutenant commander. She's effectively number 1.
Gotcha.
Number 1.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to put this blaster down before I hurt somebody.
That's a great
Sure.
blaster,
Yeah,
by the
it
way.
is a good blast.
Is that mid '90s era? Do you know what the origin?
I
of
got
that
it
is?
probably when I was like 9, so that would put it to
Wow.
the later end of the 90s.
Nice.
I'm doing math.
And thank you to all you guys joining us live in the chat.
What up?
Before we move into Star Wars discussion, I want to talk to you about some sci-fi in real life that we got this week. The UK has approved the creation of 3-parent babies. So they're basically going to be taking mitochondrial DNA from 3 parents, combining or 2 people, combining them into 1 egg, and then that makes a baby. It was created. Dan's like very
No, I'm
interested.
trying to really understand fully how this works. Is this like a Jurassic Park thing where it's just
It's more of like I think of it as a Gattaca type thing.
okay.
Yeah, when you said 3-parent babies, I immediately thought of babies that are all parents. and there's 3 of them.
No, the idea is that it was initially put into effect to like cure mitochondrial diseases.
Oh.
So
Tay-Sachs.
stuff like like Tay-Sachs.
Yeah.
You could theoretically put in a 3rd parent's DNA to completely cure that disease. It's the kind of thing that starts like, okay, nice. We're curing diseases. This is no one can argue with that.
Yeah.
Then it gets into some more politically, not politically like correct, but like stuff that people like. The big thing that people have talked about is if there is a homosexual couple, whether it's 2 men or 2 women, both of their DNAs could go into the child with this method. Of course, then it gets into stuff like on The Expanse, where there were like 7-parent. There was like a 7-parent baby because it helped like getting land rights to the right person.
Also, there's like things like, you know, if you're wealthy, you can afford to have your baby be like healthy and prevent all these diseases.
Yeah.
Where if you're poor, you're not going to be able to. So that baby is going to have less advantages than a wealthy baby will have.
Gattaca.
Also, animated series Wealthy Baby coming soon.
I love that.
That baby is rich.
It's the Richie Rich prequel.
You mean
is John Cena.
I think his name is Alec Baldwin.
Also, the baby's name is John Cena.
Oh my god.
Oh man. I mean, you what was I gonna say?
I don't know.
Oh, Boss Baby. That's the movie.
Yeah.
Boss Baby.
I wanted to be in that picture.
That was before Rogue One. I know. Just like this segment that was before Rogue One, because now let's talk about Star Wars. Oh. Yes.
Hey, John Williams.
This song wasn't in it.
No, it
They
wasn't.
teased it, and then they were like, "Screw you!"
Screw you. Welcome to a new world.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start out with a spoiler-free review before we start the actual review, just in case you guys haven't seen it.
Okay.
So I just want to get your guys' quick spoiler-free reactions to the movie. For the folks that maybe are like, I don't know. I listen to this weekly science fiction podcast,
But I'm not sure.
I don't know if I want to see this Star Wars movie.
What are these wars in the stars you speak of?
Dan, what did you think?
I loved it. I'm gonna start off by saying better than Force Awakens, at least more satisfying than Force Awakens. This was a fan film. The analogy that I keep making is that if you're a Jurassic Park fan and you love Jurassic World and you love Star Wars, you're gonna love. This was the Jurassic World of the Star Wars universe.
Whoa.
Not necessarily the best standalone film, but as a fan, there were just so many moments that I loved. It was the best. Darker than I expected. Darker than I'd expect Disney to ever go. I was super satisfied.
I hated Jurassic World and I love this movie, so you don't have to like Jurassic World to love this movie. I just want to let you
Lay
know
it
that.
down,
You should
Joel.
see Jurassic World before you see this. There's more tie-ins than I expected.
Yeah, when the Velociraptor comes back in Rogue One, I was like, okay, I get it.
If you like naval battles in space and you've wanted to see that ever since you got into Star Wars, this will grant your wish. If you wanted Not a Hero's Journey in a Star Wars movie, this will grant your wish. If you wanted a robot who could beat all robots, including the animated versions, this is your movie. It is my whole heart. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and this movie satisfied every itch. It was just perfect.
If you're a fan of like World War II films and movies that are about war specifically, then this movie you'll love it. I went to it with someone who'd never seen a Star Wars movie before, and it was their favorite movie of 2016.
Ooh.
They loved this movie, and they didn't know anything about Star Wars. They knew like lightsabers existed, and they knew like Darth Vader was a thing, but they didn't know any of the Star Wars canon, and they absolutely loved it. I first tweeted "Bridge on the River Quiet but in space" because that's what it is.
I've been sharing that with literally everyone too.
It's exactly what this is, and also everyone climbs really well. Everyone's really good at climbing in this movie.
Oh man, I really liked this movie, but there were some big flaws for me that are tough to overlook. Without saying any spoilers, the first 2/3 dragged for me.
Oh, they're my favorite.
I felt like the character development lacked a lot, but it had some of the greatest Star Wars moments in all of Star Wars. Like it was the most Star Wars-y Star Wars that's Star Wars. But
I'm gonna tell you why you're wrong about character development. By the way.
yeah, well, we'll get into it. I want to get through the spoiler, but but ultimately, you guys you liked it.
Oh god, yes.
It's my favorite Star Wars movie.
It's my second favorite Star Wars
I liked
movie.
it better than Empire.
Yeah, I can't place it above original trilogy movies, but it's the next one up.
Empire Strikes Back is my first favorite, then this one.
So you like this better than A New Hope?
Oh, God, yes. A New Hope is so boring.
Well,
oh,
you say
Jesus.
that now, but the first time you saw A New Hope,
The thing that this movie does, before spoilers, the thing that this movie does is it not only makes the prequels better because it exists, it also makes A New Hope better because it exists. Because this movie exists, it makes both at least Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope better movies.
All right. Let's cut it here before we say anything that would piss anyone off. So I want to put up a spoiler alert right now before we go any further.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
There's the guy in the Death Star.
Spoiler alert!
Yeah, that's amazing.
You have been visually and audibly warned with the red lights. Like, we're going to talk about everything about the movie.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, I'm going to throw it on the wide. Just not pay attention for a while.
Bye.
Have fun, guys.
Hey, Steve.
Our computer is angry.
Has not downloaded the movie yet.
I'm afraid I haven't seen that movie yet.
We're all gonna die. All right.
Sexy computer.
So the first thing I want to start out like pure positive favorite moments from the movie. Mine, like, I don't even have to hesitate, was Darth Vader in that hallway.
Yeah.
When it's the scariest Darth Vader moment
Yes.
ever.
Period.
Easily.
Like,
you know what
those
pays that
people,
off?
he just murders those people
There's
mercilessly.
no chance for anyone. There is literally no escape. He's arrived and everyone is kind of consigned to just die in that moment.
He's a horror character.
No,
I
the
love
best
it.
the best part about that is like Imwe earlier in the movie says that there's like a dark cloud around people who are about to kill. Like the Force shows a dark cloud, and when that door opens, it's not the white smoke that you see in A New Hope. It's dark smoke that he is like surrounded in, and it's like, oh, this is the Force is so thick with this guy about to murder people that you can, even if you're not Force sensitive, you see it.
Yeah.
And it's like this guy. And like we'd gone an entire movie without a single lightsaber sparking up, and then at the very end we see it, and it's like, oh yeah, these movies are great, man.
Well, because remember back when lightsabers were supposed to be like unusual objects that very few people had, and were only supposed to be able to be used by Jedi or people very strong with the Force.
None of the people who died by that lightsaber had ever seen a lightsaber in that scene.
Yeah.
Because it's been 20 years since there's been a noticeable Jedi there.
Yeah.
I wept.
Except for the guys that are like running around on the animated universe.
There's also the animated universe, guys. There's a lot.
I missed a lot.
There's a black lightsaber in the animated universe right now.
It's so cool and we really need it. Mandalorians had it. They slaughtered Jedi with
Actually,
it.
this movie did have a lot of nods to like Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Beyond
Clone
just
Wars.
beyond just Saw Gerrera, who's like straight up like, hey, we brought a character to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ship from
But yeah,
Rebels
other
appears.
favorite moments from you guys.
My favorite moment might be the first time Jin gets captured and like the debriefing with the rebels. Like
That's a good scene.
It felt like it was right out of a World War II film where it was like them talking about like taking the Nazis and like your moral obligation to fight the Nazis and that no one is morally correct by staying out of that war. And I really enjoyed that moment. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with the Saw Gerrera's hideout. Literally that entire, except for the moments with Saw Gerrera and the terrible CGI monster, Donnie Yen's appearance and total
Donnie Yen.
butt kicking and introducing kung fu to Star Wars universe, and I was so emotional, and it was just great. And then, dude, with the like hybrid of the cow brain scrambler from No Country and like a bazooka. That gun was everything to me. Like those two character reveals and weapon reveals. So simple, so powerful.
Baze and
amazing.
Imwe were fantastic. Like those two characters were awesome.
Oh
in this
yeah.
movie.
There's a reason I started this podcast with like
I am the Force.
I'm one with the Force. The Force is with me.
Yeah.
It's great. Dan, what about you?
I'm going to be lame and pick the same one, but I will say this. The last 2 minutes, I've never seen a movie go from really great to just incredible based on the last 2 minutes of the movie. I love the Vader scene.
there were people standing in the theater.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah, I give it a standing up.
From the moment that the Corvette crashes the two Star Destroyers together, there were people in the theater just standing up with their hands above their heads.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
It was so cool. I was like, what are we watching right now? It was really awesome. Like, people were so invested in that third act.
My heart is so full from that.
I will say, included in those 2 minutes, and I know it's a controversial moment, I loved Leia. I didn't know
too.
that was coming. I thought
Is that
I thought she looked
controversial?
great.
Do people not like
well,
it?
some people don't like the CGI usage in Tarkin.
We'll talk about the CGI absolutely later when we talk about the science of Star Wars. But yeah, I mean that moment, like the moment that from the boarding party, like as soon as they say the words boarding party, like it all starts to connect. Like, oh my God, we're right there. Like, and then you see the guys in the hats. Like, you see it happening in front of you.
When the rebels are jumping to light speed, and like one of the ships is about to go, and then boom, Super Star Destroyer right there. I was like, oh no, everyone's dead.
Anyone else? I kept being like, that's all they're gonna. There's more. Oh God, running down the corridor. Oh God, there she is. Oh, and we keep going. Like it was
the
incredible.
hot potato with the disc.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that when they saw when they were downloading the plans, it was 1970s computer graphics.
Yeah.
Like I love that everything looked. It was pretty. It was beautiful. It was done in HD, but everything was very faithful to what it looked like in A New Hope. Like,
You could show your kids this movie first, and then introduce them to A New Hope, and it will be seamless. It'll be pretty seamless for them.
I'm pretty sure when this comes out on Blu-ray, everyone's gonna go like Rogue One, A New Hope, just to enjoy life in 2017.
They need to include A New Hope on, like, I don't care if it needs to be a special edition I have to pay extra for.
Yeah.
But I just want it it just doesn't stop.
Yes.
Like,
That's
literally,
straight
I
into
just
it.
want
The
it
blockade runner into outside of Tatooine, because the movie ends like 15 minutes before A New Hope.
So you don't
starts.
need the opening crawl anymore, right? Is there anything in the opening crawl from A New Hope that we don't know from Rogue One, or is that essentially?
I don't
what
think
the
so. I
movie
think
is?
I think we basically just saw
Wow.
the opening crawl.
Yeah, that's the movie.
The movie.
That's why this movie didn't need an opening crawl.
Oh, yes,
it was
agreed.
the
Yeah,
crawl.
Opening crawl.
I'm sure there's a fan edit already working on that, Zach.
Oh,
so
there's gotta be.
if Disney doesn't do it for you, someone on the internet's gotcha.
Fans,
yeah.
God love you.
I will say this while we're here at this moment. Does it still make sense that Leia claims that she was on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan when Vader just chased her after that fight? Does that line still make sense?
I mean, you could chalk it up to Leia just trying to be like just let me go. I am she is from Alderaan, and she is a ambassador.
Right.
So like he shouldn't have jurisdiction and like the right to like attack them.
And Rebels already establishes her as a spy.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the lie is passable for me knowing that she's done a lot of spy work before.
It's not 100%, but I would say you got like 75% coverage on it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
in a trade of plot holes, I think
That's a good
Leia's
point.
excuse for like, hey, I'm arguing with you for boarding my ship versus like, the Empire overlooked a massive flaw.
That's a very fair point.
Which this was like a $200 million retcon to fix a plot hole from the original movie.
Oh, so much more.
Which I love, like the connectedness of it all.
And like
was awesome.
There were like some like member-berry moments, but there were so few and far
Oh, you
between.
mean like let us push in on this blue milk?
Yeah,
Yes.
like
I loved it.
like the blue milk, or like R2 and C-3PO, just like there go. Oh, how come no one ever tells us? Like that kind of thing. But like there were so few and far between, and they didn't feel like they were pandering. Like having R2 and C-3PO there helped expand your knowledge of like, oh, they're about to get on the Corvette, like, or not the Corvette, the blockade runner with Leia. Like, when you have Leia's father, not Darth Vader, but the other one,
Bail.
Yeah, when you have Bail Organa, like saying like, oh, it's someone I would trust. Like I trust her with my life. And like
Jimmy
there
Smits.
was a guy like 2 seats behind me who just went like, ooh. Like, he was just like, oh, it's Leia.
I'm just gonna say I went to the bathroom during that line. I'm usually great at picking when to go to the bathroom in movies.
Yeah.
I fucked up that time.
Yeah, that was a big screw up.
Yeah.
I had like the same, like, because somebody like they brought me to this theater and it was like everything was comped, and it was an iPick, which has like. So it was like they would just bring you booze.
Amazing.
So they would
Do you
just
want to be
bring...
drunk for this movie though?
I
wanted a
didn't
fully
get
sober
drunk.
experience.
I had like 2 scotches, and like halfway through the movie, I'm like, oh no.
I gotta pee.
I will say, and this is gonna be part of what I get into when we talk about like some of the story. Like the it was in the sequence on Edu. And I left and came back. I'm like, nothing happened.
Nope.
All right, let's talk about the characters though, because I want to go through this. Because one of the things that I struggle with, because like again, I had so much fun with this movie.
Yeah.
But if I sound like I've lost my voice a little bit, it's because I was yelling back and forth with somebody from AfterBuzz yesterday about whether this was better than Force Awakens. And for me, the biggest flaw that Rogue One has, and why I say Force Awakens was better, is because other than like maybe like Baze and how do you pronounce it? Chirrut?
Yeah, I guess like I just call him Imwe. Just gets easier. Yeah.
Okay. Other than like I got connected to those guys in a big way, but
yeah.
I felt like we didn't really get enough to help us connect to Jyn and Cassian, who are supposed to be our main characters.
I disagree.
Where do you...
Who do you think the main character in this movie is?
Is it not Jyn?
I think this is my main thing with like when I talk about Game of Thrones and when I talk about like this movie and any war movie, the main character is not the point of view character. The main character is the war. And in this, we got a lot of backstory on the war. We got a lot of character development on the war. We got to see a lot of levels of where the war exists. In Game of Thrones, if you think that like the Starks are the main characters, you have a bad time because they get killed a bunch. Like the war is the main character of this movie, just like the war is the main character of Bridge on the River Kwai, just like war is the main character of The Dirty Dozen, or even like movies like Saving Private Ryan. Like you can't like, because like in The Dirty Dozen, you don't remember everyone's name. You just know, like, guy who's good at explosives, guy who's sniper, guy who speaks German. Same with, like, Magnificent Seven or The Seven Samurai. You've got, like, guy who's fast, guy with bow and arrow,
but at the same
guy
time,
who's good with knives.
I get that. And, like, that's a cool, like, image, like, and an idea, like, how to construct the movie. But we're still following these people. Yeah. And like for me, it's just the problem with Jyn was she's a very interesting character. Yeah. And I came into this, I literally finished reading Catalyst, or I was listening to it on Audible minutes before I saw this movie. And so I had all this backstory on Galen and Lyra and Krennic that like I knew all of what had happened to them going into this. Even with that, I still never really connected to adult Jyn.
You know what the problem
But I don't
is?
think you were supposed to.
But then why is she there? Like, because I completely agree with you, Zach. Like, the idea, like, and I think there's a easy solution is just show us the struggle. Show us just 5 minutes less. You could probably do it in 3 solid minutes of just what was Jyn's struggle after she was left behind. Like, what is that journey like to where she is now, sitting in like a prison cell before she gets rescued.
Like I can see the pieces that they have there of her story, but I have to after the movie
I think
like
you guys
go
are
back
looking
and
at it at the wrong point of view. I think she is there simply to help highlight the war. I think that's what.
But I want to see how her.
I don't think she's boring.
She's totally boring. Because here's my problem with that theory. I like that theory. I like the idea of the war being the main character. But then you want to start with Imwe. You want Imwe to be your way in. You want the lost Jedi who like is just using a staff now and has had to hide. I feel like that's a much more interesting character to do your journey with.
I like this person who's connected to the Death Star, who isn't part of the Death Star, that you see them discover how, because her whole thing is that she's stayed away from the war, that she's refused to take part of it, and that she's never had a reason to fight. Like, that's her thing, is she's just looked out for herself. She doesn't care about the Empire. She doesn't care about the rebellion. She just keeps her head down. So this, through her eyes, we see the war become more present, and we see what the war actually does.
But I don't feel it.
In my opinion, she's got the best line in the movie when she says, I'm sorry, I forget the guy's names. Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah.
Saul.
Okay.
Saul.
It's not.
It's
to
not
clarify,
Saul.
it's not Saul.
It's
I
Saul.
thought it was Saul.
It's SAW Saw.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. We were gonna when they had to find him. Like I was
Right.
preparing all these
Better
Better
Call
Call Saul
Saul.
jokes. Dead, all dead in the water now.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he says, can you live with a world where you're looking up at the flag of the Empire? It's written better than that. Something to that extent.
Yeah.
And she says, it doesn't matter if you don't look up.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to do if you don't look up.
Yeah.
But to me, that didn't connect right because when we meet adult Jin, she's in a prison. She's in an Empire prison, so she's clearly not staying out of. She's not like keeping her head down and staying out of the way. And it just because we don't see what she was up to. Like if we'd seen her get arrested, and it was she was getting arrested because she was stealing a loaf of bread for a kid or
Aladdin
something.
style.
Like not necessarily that.
Save the cat.
Not that specific, but doing something that would
Yeah.
let us know who she was. I think that it was confusing to that. Like,
I don't think it's needed.
Why wouldn't she be?
Okay, but it's needed in Saving Private Ryan, though. In
What?
Saving Private Ryan, you get all of these moments with these guys that are so defining as to who they are. And you may not remember all of their names,
Yeah.
but you care about them deeply.
But I cared about all these characters deeply.
Nope.
Because the difference is like the war can be the character, but the war is still made up of people.
Sure.
And I want to know why each of those people is truly involved in the war. And I got the basics of Jin's story, but I didn't get the emotion that I wanted out of her. And the same thing with Cassian. We get it. Like he was.
He's been in the war
had his
since he was
family.
6.
Yeah, his family was killed when he was 6.
And he's been.
But other than that specific, and he's been ordered to do some bad stuff. But other than that, I don't know who he is.
Yeah, you do. You saw him again. It's show, don't tell. You saw him shoot a guy that he trusted in the back at the very beginning. You know who this guy is, especially as throughout the movie it shows he's a guy who's willing to do whatever it takes to beat the Empire. We've seen that. It's show, don't tell. We don't need him to say like, "Hey, this is me. This is what I do. This is where I come from."
I'm not even asking for like a monologue or a speech.
Yeah.
I'm just asking for like an arc.
Here's the
I
difference.
think we got an arc.
Here's
got
the
a
difference.
slope.
There was no tangible thing that we saw him like struggle with and connect with. Yes, whether I should kill him or not kill him.
Yeah.
But that's sort of.
And he
But
decides
that's
not
connected to the war effort. Like the reason I say that I connected more in Force Awakens was like Rey at like all the complicated stuff about her story. At the end of it was just she wanted to get back to Jakku so that she could be there and wait for her family. Like that tragic flaw in her character was what made her character so strong. And I didn't feel like I had that thing from Cassian.
But Rey is the main character of that movie. She is the arc that you're following.
Finn had the same thing. If you follow Finn's storyline, it's like he was a similar thing. He was forced to be a stormtrooper, forced to do terrible things, and is just running from that. But
Rook is doing the same thing. He's running away. He's best friends with Jin's father and is or at least good friends with Jin's father and is trying to do right by him. You get that arc with Rook.
Rook, you're talking about the pilot.
The pilot, yeah.
Yeah, and the pilot I thought was an interesting character, but like we spent more time focused on Jin and Cassian.
And I think Cassian had a really good arc too, where you hear him say like I've done terrible things. I've been fighting this war since I was 6 years old, and this has to stop. We're seeing an end to these soldiers. Like this is the end of this type of soldier moving into a new hope. That's what that entire speech was about at the very end, where all of the like militia guys and spies and assassins are all there. Like they're all there saying like this is the end. They know it's a suicide mission.
You know what? I'm gonna take it back. I think I did want a speech. I wanted my campfire moment. We have all these war movies that have this like right before the big battle, this like small intimate conversations that are usually pretty short, but give us a lot of insight into where their headspace is at. And while I think they laid out the groundwork for a good arc and for good characters, we never get these moments, like these emotional moments, because we're so invested in the war. And because this is a standalone film, I get why they did that. Like, I understand why they're like, look, you guys already know bookends what happens with this story. We don't have a lot of time. But I think that campfire moment, slowing it down, especially if you, like, Act 2 was okay for me. I had a lot of issues with Act 1. But I think if you maybe put it in, like, at the beginning or in the middle of Act 2, and broken it up a little bit and given us something to like slow down and go, oh my God, these are humans and they're about to sacrifice themselves. So,
Yeah, that's
I
what I
like a good
needed.
campfire moment.
How did
but-
the speech work for you? Was that, for me, it was a bit corny and forced at the end, but right before they go off on their mission.
I think they earned the corniness by K2 saying like, and I'm with you too. Because Cassian said I had to go. like I think they earned that corniness afterwards by basically K2 pointing out how corny it was.
Yeah.
And the music, like, almost basically doing a record scratch.
And
The
I think
swelling
there is
music.
something to be said for speeches like that, because they can, even in real life, can be effective towards motivating a crew of people, whether you're talking about like a film crew or an army.
And Star Wars is a series full of corny lines and corny
of course.
speeches.
Yeah, let us never forget that. Like, at
that's
its
why I'm
heart.
able to forgive a lot of the character flaws. I'm out here like debating. I gave it a 4.5 for my Rotten Tomatoes score. I have a lot of issues with the film, but as a Star Wars film, I think it excels in a lot of the goals of a Star Wars film. Like, the characters were never that great in Star Wars. Like, Force Awakens is kind of a special new thing, new journey that we're going on, but they've always been kind of lacking. And so it didn't really bother me. It wasn't something I was thinking about as I was watching the movie. Like, man, I wish these characters were well-rounded. I'm like, yes, whack him with a stick, lasers. It's just... it gave me everything I wanted as a Star Wars fan. If it was going to rank it as a movie, I think I'd have to look at it completely different.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it works really well as a war movie. Like,
Well,
I think if you think about like all of those movies, like maybe you have one character that's memorable, but everyone else, like I said, is just like guy who's good with knives, and guy who's good with knives has a couple cool moments where he stabs a bunch of people and then he dies, and like that's guy who's good with knives arc. Is that he was good with knives, and he killed a bunch of people, and then he died while holding knives. Because other people have guns, and knives versus guns, not usually a good fight.
Not unless
you're really
a blind
good with knives.
Jedi,
Yeah, exactly.
Master guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I think we're all like, we've all said our piece on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's. Did everybody love K2SO?
He is
Yeah, of
my
course.
new
Yeah.
favorite bot, and that's hard because I love Chopper from Rebels.
Who was
and
in
Sassy
this?
Mouth. I missed him.
He wasn't here. He was in the
He
movie.
wasn't in the room.
You were double
Where
checking.
he was.
Or there's just an identical unit, but like on the at the Rebel base, like you see at least an identical chopper droid like
Oh
go
my
by,
God.
and I think there was a chopper like droid in the X-wing that we see, like when we first enter the space
Yeah, he
above
looks like
Sarah.
Chopper, but not with the
I don't know if
same
it was
typical
him,
paint
but
job.
like there at least most people are saying that the one in the base was Chopper.
You know-
Oh my God, my heart.
and you had the ghost ship?
Yes,
Was-
that did
was
make an appearance.
Very visible
I-
in the battle.
I screamed out loud. It was, people around me like, "What is happening?" I'm like, "It's a ship. Do you see it? With the things and the."
You know who my favorite character in this movie? Guy in Crow's Nest in Yavin 4.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad he made a return.
Yeah.
This guy was like, great, good.
I like, but like that was one of those things that just like, oh yeah, that was a thing in Star Wars.
So many little
pole
things.
That pole is too small. How did you get up there? Does it raise? Is there a robot
We
that
need
comes and
another
picks
movie
you
to
up and
answer
drops
I
you down?
have to imagine it's a raised platform.
I gotta write a sketch about that guy and the bucket of pee he keeps up there.
Oh.
I mean, why a bucket? Just right over the
You
edge.
should go. Oh no, Leia, watch out!
It must be pole guys. 15-minute break. Oh man.
Yeah, K2 was awesome. I heard most of those lines were improvised.
Wow.
Which is really cool. I mean, Alan Tudyk is a fantastic comedic actor,
Yeah.
and has really good comedic timing, and all of those like just little subtle like.
Did you know that was me?
Yeah, did you know?
Oh my God.
Or just like, I won't die. I can survive in space. It's fantastic.
It was great, and you're right. It were like perfect, like buttons, like like I won't die, but like that could have easily been improv.
I've heard a lot of the reshoots had to do with him too. There was lacking in humor, and then he helped out a lot.
God, he was the humor for this movie.
For sure.
Oh yeah, no one else had anything to laugh about.
There were not a lot of laughs in this movie other than him.
Well,
Bass has a good one.
well,
I'm blind. And
Are you kidding me? When they put the bag over a blind guy.
Oh man, the two of them were great, and I loved the idea of this, like the guy who you're like, you would have been a Jedi had the Jedi still existed. And that ability to like tap into the Force,
and that he was a guardian of the Wills. Which is a reference to the original Star Wars name, and like the idea that like if you spent enough time guarding something that was specifically like important to the Jedi and like thinking about the Force, eventually you would start seeing the Force and you'd become Force sensitive.
There's a lot.
Like,
it
makes a lot of sense.
There's even more to talk about that, and when we talk about in a few minutes about the science that they sort of put into this movie, there's a lot there specifically around the kyber crystals.
What you're saying is you think he had a lot of metachlorians?
We'll talk about it. But the Kybers were the main thing. This is the interesting thing about reading Catalyst is that the Kyber crystals are like so central to the book, and Galen Erso is like basically an expert in the Kyber crystal. That's like how he is involved in the Death Star plans.
By the way, Krennic was a great
That's what I wanted to ask you is how did
Yeah.
you guys feel about like because I had a whole book to like learn who this guy was, but how did you guys feel about
I
Orson
did not
Krennic?
read the book, and I was like, it's an angry white guy. That was kind of his thing. Like I understood his motivations. I was never scared of him. In the same way that it's hard for me to be afraid of, new guy in The Force Awakens with the hair.
Kylo Ren.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's hard to be afraid of Kylo Ren because he's so consistently put in his place.
Well,
He kind of worked as a good agitator.
Yeah, I think that's kind of both of them. I kind of think are like impotent antagonists, where it's like, with Krennic, like he was so worried about upward momentum within the Empire, and he just seemed like a wimp. Like he just seemed like he had zero personal power and was just trying to gain it as much as he could. And same with Kylo Ren, where it's this like impotent rage where he's just like wailing on a machine just in his ship with a lightsaber because he's so frustrated. And like I think that's what these two characters kind of like. I think it's an interesting connection between them because I think Krennic is the same way where he's like always trying to get ahead, but he's like his big ship got taken away from him.
Well, I will say that one of
CGI
my
guy.
favorite performance moments, he's yelling at everybody. He is angry white guy for 90% of the film. Then when he sees Vader, there's a shot of him knowing Vader's about to approach, and he's like, oh shit, this guy's gonna be bad. And like he does that. So the performance-wise, I think Mendelsohn killed it. I love that guy. I mean, if there's gonna be one to play menacing white dude, I think he killed it.
Well, the very beginning reminded me of the beginning of The Searchers or Inglourious Bastards.
Oh,
where
yeah,
like
absolutely.
where like he comes with like this group of Nazis, the Death Troopers, which were awesome.
Yes.
Death Troopers were freaking like I like that the way they speak also is scary. Like they couldn't have a regular radio. It's got to be like.
Well, I think it was that the idea is their communication is scrambled.
Yeah, which is awesome. But like it was basically the beginning of the Inglourious Bastards, and he put on a very kind of similar when he was like, it's been very lonely since my wife died, and he was like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like it was like, oh, this guy's good. Like I like that performance.
Was he doing an Aussie accent that whole time, or was it classic British? I couldn't tell because it felt.
It felt a little Aussie. I think eventually fell into like the Imperial Queen's British. Yeah.
He hadn't learned that yet. He hadn't been properly trained yet.
I mean, different branch of the Imperial military has a different accent. I did also like that the Death Troopers were the ones that could aim.
Yeah.
So basically, they're like, these dozen stormtroopers can aim. They get to be in a special squadron.
Well, the other stormtroopers are clones. Like, sometimes you get like, like some of them are having issues when you're
Like
clone a trooper.
Yeah.
It's not so great.
All right, so We've already talked about like Baze and Way.
They're so good.
Great characters.
I like the love that the two of them had for each other as well. Like, without having to say it or without having to know what their relationship is, like you could clearly tell that the two of them loved each other. And I thought that was a great, like, especially when Inway dies, like that moment with the two of them like together, and you know, just the love that they had for each other. I thought it was great. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the quote unquote the science of Star Wars. There's really two things that this has. More just when I say science, it's more just like how the world works, the rules of this universe. So the Kyber crystals are what they talk about, and like the book, as I said, like goes deeper into this. That they are living crystals that are basically like force sensitive crystals.
Okay.
And that's why they're so powerful and can make the Death Star the Death Star.
Or lightsabers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you guys think about how that factor affects like the greater Star Wars universe.
I think it makes a lot more sense because before the Death Star is kind of just like a giant cannon gun thing, and it's cool. But now the idea that, especially now that we have these ideas of force wielders throughout the expanded universe of Star Wars, and these are people that don't believe in Sith or Jedi rules. They're just like, we can wield the force, and we see good and bad in all of you, so it's cool. To be able to see the crystals hold that power too. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not just for Jedi to be able to wield a lightsaber. It can be used to make any kind of weapon. Opens the world up to a whole bunch of cool new weapons that I hope we're going to see very soon.
Also, like, piggybacking on that, like, this Death Star was so, like, even though we saw, like, Alderaan get destroyed, this Death Star was so devastating. Like, it just felt so devastating. When you see Jedha get destroyed and you see, like, the plume of damage going into, like, the atmosphere, and then in the final event, when you see that, like, area get destroyed, like, it just felt so devastating and destructive. And, like, the idea, like, when Alderaan got destroyed, it was from space, it was from far away. It was a pretty cool explosion. You know, in the Force Awakens, you see like some shots of a world getting destroyed, but it's just like the red thing taking over the screen. In this, you see like actual devastation. You see it from the ground for a long period of time, and you kind of feel like that devastating force.
Seeing the Death Star from the ground in the sky, like eclipsing like half the sky, it's just horrifying. And then to learn that it's so precise. Like, the planet's too much, just destroy the city. I'm like, it can do that?
Yeah.
Like, it could just one part, not the whole planet? My God. Terrifying.
Yeah.
We had no idea there was a city switch. We thought it was just worlds. It's crazy. Yeah.
Set Death Star to, well, not stun. We're going to kill a lot of people, but not as many today.
Set Death Star to stunning.
But like the idea of that the Force is like that involved, it implies like that it can really be blended into so many more pieces of this universe. To your point, they never use the word, but they're basically saying that these crystals have lots of midichlorians in them.
Yeah.
And midichlorians are what killed Alderaan. Hear that, guys?
Metachlorians are what killed all our dreams. Yeah, well, also, I kind of like the idea of, you know, if it's a machine, like, it takes that much power just to, like, artificially create force on one of these crystals. Like, the idea that if you're a Jedi, you can activate it because you're there with the Force, but it's very, it's kind of endemic of how the Empire works, is like they'll just like machine their way into something and make it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about like the expansion of the Force, of like what the Force can do with this edition?
I'm into it. I also wonder, they must have had a ton left over for the second Death Star, because that would have been a pain in the ass to get those all over again.
Yeah, sure.
But no, I was into it. It's debatable to me, you know, what those Kyber crystals alone do, but it seems to make sense that they're. You're saying that the crystals themselves are force sensitive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like, well, they have force-like properties,
Right.
In that they react to and they affect people's emotions. Like Galen, when he first starts working them, says that he has trouble sleeping. So it could be that Enway was, because he spent so much time around the crystals in Jeddah, that is what eventually like gave him more of a force sensitivity.
And Jin had a Kyber crystal necklace.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Also, Jin says that all the brightest stars in the universe have hearts of Kyber, and I was thinking about the big destructive whatever it was called in The Force Awakens, and I was wondering maybe if how they got that giant laser is if instead of mining it from a planet, they took a star. Yeah.
I assumed it was meant to be not like the greatest stars, as in the Death Star has a heart
I thought it
of
was
Kyber.
a metaphor. I couldn't track that. Yeah.
I just Death Star and Star,
Sure.
and since the Kyber is like what powers the Death Star,
But they didn't know the name of Death Star yet.
they knew it up here.
Oh,
In their hearts.
In their hearts.
They had Heart of Kyber as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so as we wind down towards the end of the show, I want the stuff at the end. Oh, I guess it was throughout because it's Tarkin too.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel about the CGI people?
I didn't notice. And I was with someone who didn't know that, like I said, they didn't know that there were going to be CGI people in it, and they had no idea.
I didn't know they were going to do that.
Yeah.
I had heard that Tarkin was going to be in it because we'd seen like the back of his head.
Yeah.
And like somebody was like, "That's definitely Tarkin." We're like, "Yeah, that's Tarkin."
Well, in Revenge of the Sith, he made a brief cameo at the end, and I think it was purely prosthetics.
Yeah.
But he didn't speak. Here, and I think the true test is people who've never seen Star Wars. Do they know? I was with someone who hadn't seen it in years.
Yeah.
Had no idea until I turned and told her that it was a CGI.
Same here.
That's impressive. Like it was to me, it was like that. I'm like, that's impressive. That's great CGI.
Yeah.
But it's uncomfortably smooth.
It
in
is-
that way of like it's deep in the uncanny valley.
He moves. As I watched it the third time, I was like, he moves his mouth too much.
That's
Like,
the problem. I think the technology doesn't have lip movement down
Yeah.
yet. Yeah.
I think it's like it's right there.
Yeah.
It's just it's not quite right where because like the brain can still tell it's not real, even though like if you looked at each piece, it seems like it's pre-screen accurate.
But again, I was with people who had not been keeping up, did not know that there were CGI people in the movie, and two of the people, the two people that didn't know it, neither of them noticed that there was a CGI person in the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would say Leia, and people have had varying opinions on this. I think Leia looked more realistic than Tarkin. Of course, she was only in there for a few seconds.
And she also had the light was right on her face and wasn't a complicated light at all. Right. It was basically a hero light. So like they didn't have to, because Tarkin was always in that bridge room where he had the light coming through like 4 windows on the side of his face, and it was like, okay, like the people who did it doing yeoman's work, but like it was like a complicated light scheme to put a fake person in.
Yeah.
The only CGI that bothered me was that weird ass monster at the beginning, who I didn't understand.
In prison?
why
She was
there.
in jail?
Yeah.
The hentai monster?
Yeah, tentacle creature. Yeah, exactly.
Lie detector.
It was weird and looked terrible, and I didn't.
Yeah, and
It took me right out.
And they didn't pay off that you would like lose your mind. Like Rook didn't seem that affected by.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't paid off.
Yeah.
I would say the sort of peripheral aliens in this were not as good as the Force Awakens aliens. I think.
Yeah. But I loved seeing Jeddah, and I loved seeing like how eclectic a world it was, and like seeing I could have spent an entire movie on Jeddah,
Absolutely.
and just seen that world,
Well,
and like in that fight, like they basically were like that like hit and run tactic fight with like the more extreme rebel group with Saw Gerrera. Like that was a really interesting moment, and like his friend who doesn't have a jaw, and
I love seeing that there are different factions of the rebellion, and, and in the early stages of the rebellion, it's not an organization really yet.
yeah.
and so there's different varying levels of
They can't even agree on a name.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
just so cute.
Mon
Alliance.
Mothma was very much like in control. She was almost in control, but there was like they had this council that like she couldn't. They were trying to be democratic about it, and they're like, wait, maybe somebody should be in charge. Wait a minute, we're slippery slope. No, but I like that Mon Mothma was there, all that stuff. So we're almost out of time.
The space battle was so good.
I know.
Space battle.
Oh God, the space battle.
We see
well,
Red 5 die.
Let's do final thoughts
Yeah.
from everybody. So if you want to make it about the space battle, feel free.
Sure. That space battle and that beach fight were so freaking cool, guys. Every part of it was so awesome. The third act, I love the third act so much. And that space battle, we get to see Red 5 die, so we know why Luke becomes Red 5. We see why there is no blue leader at all, who was awesome. He was like, cheers, Mom. And like went to go kill some Imperials. I love the space battle, every part of it, especially the 2 Star Destroyers colliding in on each other.
Beautiful.
It was so cool.
Yeah, and the Hammerhead was apparently a Rebels reference that I wasn't familiar
Well,
with.
it's
But I guess
also
it's
Star Wars: The Old Republic, the video game. If you play a Jedi, that's the ship you're given, is a Hammerhead Corvette. So I think it was also like a nod to that.
Well,
as
this specific one I think was captured within the Rebels show.
And they
cool.
just did that like this season, I think. So
That's pretty
that
cool.
was pretty cool. I'm just the fact that they killed everybody, I think, is such a brave choice. Despite, like, you could have just kept one and let that person carry on that journey or something, but to do it, all of them at once, and then to do it in such a heart-wrenching way, just them holding each other on the beach and just watching the world implode, it was moving, and it's probably one of the best moments in Star Wars history, just as far as emotional impact goes. And then I applaud them, and I hope that as we continue to do these individual one-off movies, that we can get more moments like that.
I think that it gave me so much confidence in the future of these one-offs.
Yeah.
I think it had great fan service moments that didn't pull from our main storyline. It was very earned, everything was very natural. I just think that, so many major blockbuster franchises are so focused on setting up future installments more than the story that they're focused on in the film we're watching. This was not the case. I think this was a very well-earned film that had great fan moments that didn't take away from the movie.
There's no Rogue 2 or 3.
No, and they said so much before, and I think that was a good move to like really let everyone know going in. Like, you're seeing a standalone, and that you're right. That to me was like a big standout. Was like that the way that it the last act goes, like from like the space battle was amazing to watch, and the way that each character met their end, the fact that Krennic had to stare down the laser that he helped build, and he was his brainchild basically, more or less, like the thing that he brought into existence just killed him, and like I really liked how like that they had the balls to. I always joke when it's like, don't spoil the ending. Everybody died. That's what happened. This and The Departed.
Also, we didn't say it, but Jin's father dying was a great emotional moment as well. And saying, I have so much to tell you, and then dying is the most devastating line you could do for those two. It was so good.
Well, if you guys have any other moments that you really loved from Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, let us know in the comments below. Let us know what you thought. For me, I'm giving it a solid B+. It was me for all the reasons that we talked about earlier. I'm assuming we know 4 out of 5 from 4.5 out of 5 from Joel. Dan, what?
A, or high A- or low A. I'm giving it a 94.
A+.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know what you thought. What grade would you give it? How many out of 10 midichlorians would you give this movie? I'm just trolling people. But yeah, let us know in the comments below if we didn't talk about your favorite moment, what that was, because we'd love to hear from you guys. Especially because we're going to be on break for the holidays. With Sci-Fi Weekly, we'll be going dark until January 8th when we come back to talk about Passengers. With Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. It comes out around Christmas, and then we'll be back in the new year to talk about that. Until then, You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @ZachWilson, ThatZachWilson. And we'll be doing the Doctor Who Christmas special on AfterBuzz TV on December 29th, so stay tuned for that.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at JessKlein1. That's JessKlein, the number 1. And you can see me doing live comedy all around the Los Angeles area. If you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, you'll see me talking about it. So.
Yeah, and thank you to our 2 guests for coming in. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Joelle. Where can everyone keep up with you or plug whatever? Dan, I guess you don't want to plug anything.
No, I mean, I'm going to plug, again, at Dan J. Peralt, and also just find me at a Target buying more copies of this shirt. So,
Scarbody.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Target has the best Star Wars shirts. I'm just going to plug Target.
They have a lot of...
They do good. I'm Joelle Monique. You can find me every week at blackgirlnerds.com. Head over to my Instagram, Joelle_Monique, to see my photos from the premiere night of Star Wars, if you want to see what that looked like. Wow, this is blue in here. And hit me up on Twitter and talk to me more about Star Wars, because I'm not done yet. I have so much more to say about this movie. It's great. So much to tell you.
Yeah, keep the conversation going with us on Twitter. You can find Sci-Fi Weekly on Twitter and Facebook at Sci-Fi Weekly. And until next time, guys, remember, this has been Sci-Fi Weekly, the show where we're only one lab coat away from being real scientists.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.